It's 5. Good evening, commissioners and staff. I'm calling this meeting to order for the July 20th, 2022 Palm Springs Airport Commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. Knowing that the agenda was posted July 14, 22. Christina, roll call, please.
Chairman Dada, would we like to do the Pledge of Allegiance first?
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'd like to have Commissioner Breslin lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance. My apologies.
My honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Breslin. Roll call, please.
Yes, Chairman Dada. Would everyone please take a moment and unmute your mics? Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Breslin,
Present.
Badillo,
Present.
Burke,
Present.
Corcoran, Dada,
Here.
Feltman,
Here.
Hedrick,
Present.
Hughes, Martin, Miller,
Here.
Payne,
Present.
Philbrook,
Present.
Pye,
Here.
Commissioner Schmitz is excused. Swearo,
Here.
Wheel,
Here.
and Wiseman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Christina. And at this time, do we have anyone from the public for comments?
Chairman Dada, would we like to accept the agenda?
Boy, I'm slipping today. I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Christina, now do we have anyone from the public?
We
that
have no
would-
scheduled speakers for this evening for public comments. We'll give it a moment to see if anyone would like to raise their hand to speak at this time. And it does not look like we have any public speakers tonight.
Seeing none, we will close this section of the public comments, and I see that Vice Chair Cochran has joined us, so I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the June 15th meeting.
I move. Second.
So we have a motion and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, before we start the introduction and presentation, I have one request that there are several commissioners, including myself and a staff, that have requested that we wrap up this meeting as early as possible due to some family commitments. So I want all commissioners to please keep that in mind. And we now move on to introduction and presentations. Harry, do we have any?
We do not have any for this evening.
Thank you. Knowing that we don't have, or I don't see on my screen, our city manager. Christina, do we have it?
I do not see the city manager in the meeting, but I will let you know if he does join us.
Terrific. All right, we move on to our executive director, Harry.
Harry, we cannot hear you.
Thank you, Chairman Dada. I believe the next order of business.
I think you're gonna have to turn your video off for this one, Harry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've lost you.
Harry, we've lost you if you can hear us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now
Yes.
we-
Okay, I do apologize. I'm actually working under the terminal right now.
I'm glad you're not working under the plane, so you're good to go.
um, so I am going to go ahead and let Victoria provide a financial summary. So if you don't mind, we're going to do 10B first and 10E, and then I'll roll into my spiel, Chairman Dada.
Perfect. Victoria, move forward, please.
Good evening. I am going to share my screen. Please let me know if you cannot see my screen that has the financials on. All right. So just very briefly, I'm going to go over the financials since this is the end of the fiscal year. Everybody did receive the financials in their packet. If there's anything that you have questions on, please let me know. I do want to just go over and highlight that we've had surpluses in our customer facility charge fund, as well as our passenger facility charge fund, and then our airport operation and maintenance fund. And you will notice that there's a change to the reporting of the financial summary. It just kind of breaks out what the total airline revenues are and what all other non-airline revenue is. I just wanted to get that for myself and for future reference so that we can start projecting out our cost per plane passengers for the airline fees that we have, which just so happens to be $6.11 is our cost per plane passenger, which is actually lower than what we were anticipating of $6.69. So that's really good for our airlines.
And Victoria, how does that relate to other similar airports of our size?
I know that we have a very low CPE. So it's great given the fact that we came in lower than what we were projecting for this year.
Okay.
Lastly is the Fund 416 that has the deficit of 4.1 million. But our cash reserves is great. As you could see, our Fund 405 for the customer facility charges has almost 30 million. And then our Fund 410 has 2.9 million, which it's starting to build up those cash reserves again since we completed the ticket wing project. And then our unrestricted Fund 415 fund has 20 million in it. And then our Fund 416 has 7.3 million. Just wanted to give the commission an update that we're currently working on distributing the CRISA and the ARPA concessions grant reimbursement for rent relief. And that applies to any concessionaires that qualify for those programs. And it's based on an allocation. So that's already been distributed. We've submitted our plan to the FAA. We're waiting the FAA's approval and we're waiting to receive the certifications back. I do want to point out in your package that you have that we have the fiscal year passenger activity report. Our in-plane passengers, which is right down here, ended the year at 1.4 million. If you see the different colors here, the blue is from fiscal year 19. So you could see that we actually surpassed that by 11%. So as you could see, fiscal year 22, we're doing a lot better than what we originally projected for this year. So all of our revenues and expenses have not been received as of yet. We're still going through and we're posting those as they are receiving. So we could potentially be a little bit higher than what we were anticipating. Other than that, that concludes my presentation. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Data.
Any questions for Victoria, please?
I've
Yes.
got one. Go ahead, Kevin.
So Victoria, I know that we have surplus in all these different funds. How much of this money is discretionary funds that we can use to invest in other things based on the performance that the airport's experiencing right now?
Mhm. So right now, our current AULA states that we have to provide a capital investment program to our airlines, and we have to do a vote on it. So when we did our budget for the year, we presented that, and the airlines have to vote on it, and then we're able to allocate whatever the vote is and whatever the CIP that they approved, we can allocate that into our special capital projects. So there's a portion of that we could utilize. Also, the AULA does state that we're able to keep some cash on hand, some reserves, and we're allowed to allocate that reserves over to those funds, which I'm currently working with our finance department so that we can move some of that cash out and move it into those reserve funds. We have at least 250,000 that we're allowed to put towards a landside reserve fund. And then we could put at least 60 days of operation and maintenance to that O&M reserve fund. And then those reserve funds will then be used so that we could do projects with them.
What's the maximum amount of money that we would bring to the airlines based on the performance of the airport right now? If we wanted to go to them with the maximum amount of money that we've gained in this year, what would that number be?
So essentially what we're supposed to do at the end of the year is if there's any surplus or deficits, then either under our current agreement, the residual agreement, the airlines would cover the deficits and then the credits would go back to the airlines. So we're currently in that negotiation phase with the airlines right now, since we're trying to also negotiate a EULA. So to answer your question, I don't have an exact number at this moment, but we are trying to negotiate so that we can essentially have a plan for keeping those, 20 million and potentially using that for the next 5 years on capital projects.
So it's $20 million, give or take.
Yeah, as a surplus right now. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How long do we expect the negotiations to go along? That's a big chunk of change. So when will you resolve?
Yes, so we're going through that negotiation right now, and we intend to have that settled by March so that we can have them signed and all of the airline agreements for the signatory airlines signed and in effect by July 1, 2023.
So by March 2023.
Yes, March 2023.
Victoria, do you have, I'm just curious if you have the following data and then could present it. So do you have data? So the question is really, do you have the data or do we need to go get the data around budget to actuals across the board, and then labor broken down by airport department, filled rec versus unfilled rec? Is that data available to be presented, or would you have to go get it?
That's in the financials.
So we do have the data.
Yes, that should be your packet.
Okay.
Victoria, this is Scott Miller. So are you saying that the excess operating funds are by agreement with the airports go into capital project funds?
Not all of it, but some of it does get allocated to capital project reserve funds.
So what about the rest of the operating funds, since you seem to have a healthy balance at the end of the year? Can that be then reallocated to other non-capital improvement types of projects or purchases?
So as of right now, the way that existing AULA is stated is that it's supposed to be a credit to the airlines. So essentially, we could be forgiving the airlines their landing fees and over the next year. We would essentially give that back to them over the next year. But right now, we're trying to go through negotiations so that we could potentially keep that for capital investments over the next 5 years.
So what you're saying is that staff's done a great job in holding expenses to a minimum. And by doing that, any of the money that they've saved go back as a credit to the airlines.
Yes.
And so isn't that a disincentive? Why wouldn't staff then spend every single dollar of the operating budget?
Well, we essentially want to, as much as we can. We definitely want to do whatever types of improvements we can within the airport. Unfortunately, at this time, I'm just looking at the financials, and we originally had projected about 27 million of operating expenditures, but we only had 22.8 million in expenditures that we were able to expense throughout this year. And that's on all different aspects of the airport operation and maintenance. We do want to continue investing in our airport. It's not something that we're not trying to do. We definitely, if we have things that are not considered a capital project, but they are high dollar, we definitely go towards that, and we try to, make those fixes around the airport. The one thing that really just kind of was an amazing thing for us was that our car rentals, they completely doubled in revenue. So we just had way more revenue than what we were expecting for this year. Our car rentals revenue for this year were 11.5 million. We've never ever gotten to that point of receiving that much in car rental revenue. So that was an unexpected bonus. But currently under this residual agreement, that's just the way the language of the agreement is that we would essentially have to give back the credit. Usually in prior years, we were able to kind of fluctuate that. And there wasn't so much of a large credit, but we didn't have $10 million to just spend on just anything around the airport that wasn't considered a capital project.
Is another way,
So just as
Can I
a
step
final
in here?
follow-up, and I know that Chairman Dye wanted to keep this short. Maybe we can take this subject, bring it to the Budget and Finance Committee. Because I think there's a number, or at least for myself, that I'd like to explore this in a more detail. I've worked at 3 airports before, and this is the first airport that I know that has had that type of arrangement with their airlines. And so I'm trying to get my head around it. And I think there's lots of other needs, but instead of taking the whole commission's time, maybe it would be good if, and Harry, that you could, and Victoria, you can follow up with the Finance and Budget Committee at a future meeting for them to really delve into this in a detail and try to make sense of this and come back to the commission with something, because it's a disincentive for staff. I mean, we don't want staff spending money just to spend money. But on the other hand, I think most of the commissioners have projects that they'd like to see money go to that aren't listed. And because the airlines have the final say in all the projects, no matter what, I think that, there needs to be some sort of resolution with this. And I know you guys are trying, but I don't want to take up any more of the commission's time, but I think that should go to the Budget and Finance Committee for a much.
I agree. I agree with you, Scott. I think
So can I step in here for a second? So
Please.
there's a couple of things about this. So with regard to taking this to the Budget and Finance Committee, I would not want to do that while we're actively in negotiations with the airlines right now, because we've made kind of progress in some areas in converting their residual agreement to a potential hybrid compensatory agreement where we would go into a revenue sharing or profit sharing arrangement. So I would hold off on that just for now. I think what Victoria was trying to explain, and she did well at it, was essentially right now, there are a number of airports in the US that are under the same residual agreement, San Francisco being one of them, New Orleans being another. So this type of agreement is known throughout the industry. It's not common anymore. We've been under our current agreement for about 20 years. What we're trying to do is convert that agreement to something different. Right now, what we have to do as an airport staff is present the budget to the airlines, the operating budget to the airlines. They essentially cover the entire cost of the operating budget for the airport. So that includes airside, landside, and terminal. As a result, at the end of the year, we not only have to true up with them, but they also have significant control and say in our capital programs. We're trying to change that dynamic now. And we've made some progress there, but we're still working on that.
Question?
Thank you, Harry, for giving us this update. And I will request Commissioner Feltman and Commissioner Miller, if we can defer it till staff gets back to us before we put these questions to the budget committee.
Well, I think Scott just wants clarification. I don't think, Scott, unless I misunderstood you, I think he just wants clarification on this because it is kind of odd. It seems like we're in a place where we've done really well with non-aeronautical revenue through rental car, and now we're going to hand it back to the airlines who are already providing incentive programs too. So I think it's a little confusing to us. And I think all we're asking for is a budget committee discussion, which we don't have to have in a public meeting. If that's the concern, Harry, we could certainly do a closed session, or we won't have a quorum, so we won't have to have a public meeting, but I think it's clarity. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah, and sure. We're happy to provide that clarity. We just wouldn't want to go into too much detail while we're actively negotiating the agreement.
Yeah, I think there's plenty to cover kind of outside that agreement negotiation in terms of kind of the surplus and the precedent of running surpluses of that size. And we've changed our rental car construct, what we're charging customers, which, as I recall from the budget presentation, is also going to change the scale of the revenue of rental cars, perhaps yet again. And so I think wrapping our heads around this is timely, and I don't really want to wait till March to do that, because then the fiscal year is almost over already.
Sure. So yeah, we can provide clarity around that as well. The CFCs are a different pot of money, so we typically don't apply those to the airlines or airside at all. Those are strictly for landside development, consolidated rental car facilities, but we can certainly provide additional detail about how the funds are used, particularly their relevance under not only our agreements, but under FAA rules. Happy to do that. It's just, I wouldn't want to delve into some of the details that we were negotiating.
Yeah, we can create lines around those as needed.
Thank you, everyone. Any other questions for Veronica? Sorry, Victoria. Seeing none, Harry, we would like for you to take over.
I just want to make sure that Daniel, if he's still on the call, didn't have anything for you, and then I can go into my presentation.
I'm on. I just got my normal little marketing update, but it was also emailed out to the commission, so I don't have to go through it. It's pretty self-explanatory, up to you guys.
Okay, perfect. Then we will move on. Couple of things, commissioners. So last week we had a discussion with V1 Consulting. That's the consultant working on analyzing our baggage, or our outbound baggage handling system. And they provided some high-level initial insights and observations on the baggage handling system, its performance, and recommendations for short, medium, and long-term fixes to the problem that we had over the spring of this year. What essentially, is the problem is the design of the system. There are some physical constraints that are making it challenging for the system to deliver bags to the TSA screening machines and then pass the clear line out to the carousels in time. So that's what's been causing the backlog at the ticket counter. Some of this we already knew, but once you get into the nuance, there were things like the type of belts that we were using on the baggage handling system that were an issue. Issues with the sensors and where the sensors are placed, the photo eye sensors, and then the merge logic of the baggage handling system. So after some discussion with V1 and earlier today with the airlines, we concluded that we're probably likely to be in the same situation in terms of outbound baggage that we were over the spring of this year. The airport is developing a plan to mitigate that. That includes adding some personnel via contract with Sierra Aviation. That also includes some modifications to how TSA screens the bags. Some of that I can't disclose in public, but we have been working with TSA on how they screen the bags and what that looks like. We are also working on a communications plan so that we're able to communicate to the resorts as well as to the public what's happening with the system, and to make sure that the public is informed that they need to come to the airport earlier, particularly during the holiday season and during the months of March, between March and, January and March. So I wanted to provide that update. It appears that the medium and long-term solutions, we're gonna have to dig into those pretty soon. So our short-term fixes are only gonna get us through a year or 2 years at most. We are likely to have to go into another construction project to remedy the current outbound baggage handling system. So we're working with V1, with TSA, with FAA on that now. And as we have more information, I'm happy to provide that to you. Are there any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question. What kind of time, requirement are we going to put on travelers to get to the airport? What are we asking them for?
Right now, we're asking 2 hours ahead of departure.
Yeah.
And we're communicating that to the airlines as well. So the airlines will hopefully in their check-in process communicate that to their customers.
Yeah, that's really bad for our brand. I mean, I know we're dealing with systems, all that stuff, but I just have to say it out loud. I mean, our airport is known for being, an easy airport to navigate, and I just put it out there. This doesn't feel like the complete answer we need. 2 hours at Palm Springs in advance is just really eye-popping.
Well, nobody's going to do it. I mean, end of story. Harry, I'm flying out on Saturday morning. Am I going to have to get there 2 hours ahead of time for a check bag?
Not right now. So we're talking about in season only and during our peak hours. So recall, we were only having those challenges in the very early morning bank. So between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. And then again, right around the 11 o'clock hour to the 2 o'clock hour. So during those periods, that's when we would ask that people be more cognizant of their time, show up a little bit earlier and make sure that their bags are checked. Otherwise, we run the risk of those bags being left here at the airport.
No, understood. But you're saying a 5:30 flight means I come to the airport at 3:30 in the morning?
You would have to plan for that. So it would probably most likely be 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, particularly if it's a mainline flight, yes.
Oh my God.
Is there even someone there to take your bag at that hour?
Yes, the airlines are well aware. They are staffing those things. TSA is also aware, and they have been opening the checkpoint and the screening area at 4 o'clock in the morning.
This is going to be a nightmare in terms of advertising and in terms of customer satisfaction.
Would it be possible, again, to be sensitive to everybody's time and the desire to end early? Harry, could we work offline with Jan on the operation committee and really would like to understand this better. I'm lost on it. So could we take it offline with Jan and the operations committee and those commission members?
Absolutely, we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
You know, I understand that's a challenging thing to wrap our head around. Unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of the baggage handling system that we were delivered. So I
I have a
understand.
question about that. Can I have a question about that, please?
Go
So
ahead.
I joined the committee when this whole thing was presented to the commission. And we were told by the former administrator that this was state of the art and that everyone had input and all the airlines had input on what was going to happen in that ticketing area, which we later found out was not true. Are any of these vendors liable? I mean, this thing is 2 years old and it doesn't work. And I assume that a lot of work went into, prior to me coming on this commission, to figuring out and vetting this whole thing and finding resources to do it and the whole bidding process. Are any of these vendors liable for this now that the performance hasn't been delivered?
And that's a really good question. So we are still researching that. We believe there may be some liability there. The city attorney is looking into it. Justin's been looking into it. I've been looking into it. And V1 has a lot of documents that they're currently going through right now to determine how we got to this place. We do know that you're absolutely correct. The airlines weren't as informed as they should have been about the design of the project. What we're trying to determine right now is just what analysis went into the design at all. What measures, what metrics were taken into account to get us here. And frankly, we just don't know the answer to that. So we're still researching that at this time.
Any other questions?
I think, yeah, we do need to take this to the operations committee, because if the Desert Sun or the city council get a hold of this, it's going to be ugly.
Respectfully, the council is aware of it 100%. I don't know whether the Desert Sun is not, but the council is absolutely knows about it, and our current city manager is definitely working with the council and keeping them updated as the moving parts are moving.
I would like to make a comment. If I recall well, in a previous situation, the airlines upon arrival to Palm Springs had to make the announcement to please arrive 2 hours prior, because there was a TSA backup going to TSA. So it's not the first time that we do this to tell passengers upon arrival to please arrive to the airport early.
And that's absolutely accurate. So between the months of February and May, we were doing that already.
Thank you. Harry, can we accommodate this further discussion with the operations committee whenever the committee will meet?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, Chairman Dada, this is Paul Budillo. I met with our resort managers here in Indian Wells 2 weeks ago. Prior to the discussion tonight, they already were not happy with the delays in baggage. And I spent 2 hours with them, and they were clearly voicing their concern and how upset their customers were and visitors were to Indian Wells because of the issues at the airport, especially baggage claim. So if they're going to have to be calling in or coming in 2 hours early, this is just not going to fly.
And Commissioner Badillo, we respect your comments. However, currently it's beyond our power and control. However, as you know it, our executive director has said they are all working behind the scenes, and there might be an opportunity to see where can some of the blame can be shifted on, or some of the liability can be shifted on. So I have some patience, and I can assure you that all the resort managers, we will make it a point to notify them at our next Joint Power Authority and Hospitality and Industry and Business Council meeting that I believe is scheduled in September.
And that's exactly right, Chairman Dada. We actually have an army of people. We had a call today with 35 people on the call working on this very issue, and we've been working on it for a couple months now. So as we're learning new information, we're adapting and we're finding ways to get better. And hopefully going into the season, we'll be a lot better than we were over the last spring. That said, we do still have a system that's in place, and that's the system that we are currently going to have to work with until we can adopt a better one.
And we spent 40 million for this, right, Harry?
For the BHS itself, I want to say that was in the $7 million range. I'd have to double check that number. I can't give it with accuracy, but about $36 million for the entire project.
Plus all this time to fix. Okay.
Thank you so much for understanding, and Harry, move on.
Thank you. And then I just have one more thing, and I'm going to ask Christina to pull up some slides for me. The commission may be aware that the airport is currently also working on common use at the gates and the Bono and the RJ concourses. The idea is to create some flexibility in aircraft parking so that we can accommodate those peaks as they come. But also within that, we wanted to modernize the Bono concourse in particular because that needed some TLC. So we've been working with Gensler on new podiums and new refresh of the Bono concourse. We finally have gotten to the concept level design for that, and I wanted to share that with you now. So Christina, if you don't mind.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
And next slide, please.
Sorry, one moment.
So some feedback that we took back from both the commission and from the airlines is that at least within the interior space, we really wanted to make sure that we were presenting that Palm Springs feel. So when we took that to Gensler, what they tried to do was take architecture from around the city of Palm Springs and incorporate that within the podiums and within the feel of the new design of the terminal to make that happen. So these were some of the concepts that they came up with. They worked with airport staff over the last few weeks just to kind of hone that in. And we've nailed down what we believe is a design that'll work for the Bono concourse. Slide, please. So if you look at this, we are looking at replacing what are currently mobile podiums that the airlines use at the doors, as well as the center island customer service counters in the Bono with these double podiums. And these podiums would be set at the doors. The airlines would be able to work from either position. One position to handle customers that might need rebooking or seat changes, the other position for scanning tickets. But this is the concept of design. Slide, please. We looked at a number of different color palettes. Some of them the airport staff just frankly had a visceral reaction to. But this is generally one where we had consensus around the actual products. So if you could see, some of that is ribbed metal across the front of the podium. There's some wood laminate incorporated within, as well as some, it's not glass, but it's, I forget the name of it, core form. But this is what essentially the design of the podiums would look like within the terminal. Slide, please. We also looked at replacing carpet in both the RJ and the Bono terminals. We did narrow this down to two choices. Obviously, those are highlighted in red there. The first choice would be more neutral. The second would be the bark color. But we believe those most complemented the podiums as designed. Slide. So what we have tried to achieve, one of the goals of this reconfiguration and removing the center customer service island was to create more queuing space for the airlines, more circulation space for the passengers, as well as update the look and the feel of the terminal itself. This is what the existing terminal looks like with the seating in its current configuration and with the customer service counters where they're located. Slide, please. This is what we're aiming for ultimately as the proposed new layout. So we would rearrange some of the seating. We did take a look at it. We realized that we couldn't necessarily add seating without reducing the circulation space, but rearranging the seating so that we had more uniform queuing space, and that would create greater circulation. And then we have some options to play with in terms of maybe additional bench seating or other elements that we can incorporate within the terminal. Slide, please. So if you can see the current state of the signage and of the mobile counters, this is what it looks like at the gates now. We're trying to get rid of all of this. It just looks cluttered and it's causing congestion and it just really doesn't look customer friendly. Slide, please. This is what we essentially hope to reflect in the new design. So more open space. There wouldn't be a back wall behind the counters, but there would be monitors suspended from the ceilings that would have FIDS information on it, as well as boarding priorities. And then again, we rearranged the seating in there. And I believe that's the last slide. Oh, one more. And this is just a different version of that, where the corners meet in the bone concourse. So I wanted to present this to the commission just so you had an idea of where we were headed and what's to come over the next 6 to 8 months as we transition over to common use. The IT component of that project is a separate project, and we're working with Amadeus to implement that now. But at least with millwork, we're kind of rocking and rolling on that. So I wanted to make sure that the commission knew that and actually wanted to get any comments from anyone. And with that, Christine, I think you can close the slide, but are there any questions?
Oh, quick one. Is there any opportunity, Harry, for automation, biometric boarding, anything on the tech side that would further reduce the need for either personnel or physical millwork, because now you're boarding in a slightly different way? Any opportunity to do that?
Yes, there is opportunity to capture that. And a couple of airlines have already expressed that they would like to do that. The challenge in a common use scenario is getting everybody to do something that's functional across all airlines. So we're working with the airlines to figure out what that looks like, but we have had a couple of airlines indicate that they would like to use more high-tech options to get their passengers screening through.
Well, just withhold part of that 20 million. Victoria just says you don't get it.
Well, some of that is frankly going to be proprietary to the airline. So for example, Alaska would like to use high-tech options, but they would like to use their own systems, not anything tied to the airport.
Is common use agreed to by all the airlines at PSP, or is that a negotiation as part of the lease agreement as well?
Both. So it was agreed to. The airlines realized there was a functional need for common use across all the gates just because we were having so many gate constraints. But we're also using that as a revenue generator and negotiating their new agreement.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Can I ask, since we now have a historic designation airport, we have so much expertise on mid-century modern here in Palm Springs from local people. Is it any way to get input from them? I mean, personally, those aren't quite the colors that are mid-century modern, if that's what you're going for to be authentic. And there's so many experts locally that you could get great advice from.
So we hadn't considered that. I think that's good input. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. We can absolutely get input for them. So this obviously isn't the final design.
Okay,
we do
good.
intend to.
Sorry.
No, I understand. We intend to create a mock-up, and we intend to vet this not only with the airlines, but also have you all come out and take a look at it as well. But if there are any inputs about colors or materials or themes, absolutely send them our way. We can make those changes now.
Well, and also rely on the expertise of our other commissions. The Art Museum can put you definitely in touch with experts of mid-century modern that can help you with those decisions that would really reflect the authenticity of our historic status and airport.
That's a fair point, and we can do that.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Adams, I can assure you that our city council is going to get involved, and they're very, very particular about any changes or any new direction. Because I can share with you that we had a meeting through the CVB. There was a grant available of 100,000 through the CVB, and we came up with a plan to do some shade structures to give some good customer experience during the summer months. And that was the first thing that brought to our attention that the folks that I hear, modernism and on, will be involved in getting all the approval process.
Great to know. Thank you.
So yeah, I want to remind the commissioners, I mean, this really is, I know your first time seeing it, but this is the time for those type of comments, because we can take those back to the Gensler team and maybe, you know, connect them with the right people for those inputs.
Say
Any other
thing as a real quick as humor. Think Sputnik.
Okay.
Harry, anything else you have?
Nothing for me. That concludes my executive director's report. Thank you, Chairman.
Terrific. We will bring up now 10C, which is the strategic planning session update. And we would have discussed it, but knowing that we just had this mega announcement a couple of days ago that our city manager is now leaving us after only 15 months, and knowing that the commission was unable to come up with a date, and Christina did her utmost to fit or come up with a schedule. So what I would like to do is, knowing we will be dark in August, that we will electronically communicate with every commissioner, and especially knowing that the city council has scheduled a special meeting this coming Monday, and see what type of announcement comes from there. Based on that, Christina, myself, and Vice Chair Cochran will take the next step.
What next step are you talking about?
Well,
Chairman?
first of all, I would like to wait till the Monday's announcement from the city council, because we had all agreed that in this strategic session, we are going to include the senior airport staff as well as our city manager. And knowing that we won't have a city manager.
Well, you'll have an acting city manager. You're gonna have somebody.
I think we will wait for the announcement on Monday. They might change their mind because there is a special meeting. There must be some announcement. So have a little patience. We will electronically communicate with everyone and come up with the date. Anything you would like to add, Vice Chair Cochran?
I've just to reiterate, build on what you said, a lot of moving pieces right now. And if we're going to do this, we want to make sure you're the right people in the room. We'll just know more by next week. So stay tuned. There's lots of things happening behind the scenes here.
So clarification, Christina, I think you sent out a date in September or a week in September. So there was a tentative date identified, correct?
Yeah, Tuesday, September 27th is the date, unless the city council advises us otherwise. Everything is still being set for that date. And I encourage the commissioners to submit their agenda topics. If you have agenda topics you'd like to submit for consideration, We haven't really received many. So we encourage you to still do that so that we can plan the agenda from there.
Well, you got mine, Christina, correct?
That is correct.
Very good.
My concern was that at the commission council dinner, the council gave each commission very specific topics to bring back to them and they all wanted to hear them. And from a later conversation I had with one of the council members, they want to hear from us sooner than later. Not just the airport commission, I mean the whole commission, all the commissions. And when I mentioned we were not getting together until the last week of September, they were not aware of that. And so I'm wondering, how do we meld that time frame with the 8 different things that I wrote down when we were at the commission council dinner that they wanted us to comment on as a commission?
Well, I can assure you that we currently tentatively pinpoint that date. Have a little patience. We still got time. Let's wait till Monday. Monday is right around the corner, 96 hours or less, and we will electronically notify everyone.
I guess I'm questioning whether the city manager is crucial to a commission goal setting meeting for our commission. I can understand that the executive director of the airport is. I'm not as convinced that a city manager is as crucial because we're one of 1,000 different things the city manager is dealing with. And I think Harry can represent senior management fairly well. So I'm not sure, because we've been talking about this since my first appointment on this commission, which was a year ago. And we still haven't done this. So I'm a bit frustrated about that.
Commissioner Miller, I respect and I apologize for your frustration, but I've been given strict guidelines that in this strategic get together that we have, the city manager who is the ultimate decision maker. Keep in mind, none of us are the decision makers. All we can do is advise the airport staff as well as give our feedback. The ultimate decision will be made by the city manager and the city council.
So that's clarity. So what you're telling us, Commissioner Dada, is you've been instructed by city manager / city council that we have to identify a city manager that will participate in the offsite before we can have the offsite. Is that a fair summation?
No, that was the decision this commission had made, that we are going to have this retreat by including the city manager, who is the final authority even over our airport director and the staff.
I would just like politely suggest that we continue on with the agenda. Chairman Dada, Vice Chairman Cochran, thank you. You all have made it very clear that we should hold for a few more days and be patient. I'm certainly willing to do that, and I'm respectfully asking other members of the commission that we do the same and continue on with the agenda.
Thank you so much.
And hold the dates for now. Continue to hold the dates. Do not commit to other meetings. We're going to resolve this quickly.
Exactly. All right, Harry, you have anything else, or we will let Daniel take over?
No, Chairman Dada, and I don't believe Daniel has anything to present.
No presentation from Daniel. Any other comments from any other commissioners?
I've got a quick one. Since we have to get out of this meeting quickly, what's the process, Chairman Dada, for getting this meeting moved to a more reasonable time that doesn't push into people's personal lives? So what is the process for getting it 9 to 5, hybrid, Zoom versus physical, back, what I would call normal? So just what is the process?
Well, you know, we had asked that question to the city council and the city clerk and the city manager. And we were specifically told that the city council has made a decision in order to include public comments has to be done after the 5 o'clock hour. So that's the reason we had come in with the 5:30 prior to COVID. This commission met every once a month on a Wednesday at the airport in the boardroom at 8 o'clock sharp, hoping that in the next few months and keeping our fingers crossed that this COVID becomes like a flu-like symptom and it becomes a normal flu. And hopefully we can get all of us back to our normal lives.
So what I remember being stated by the mayor in our Tuesday joint meeting was that I think she asked a question to the entire assembly. She said, or she did it personally and she walked around. It was, does it really make sense to do these meetings after hours? Are we really getting the input from the public, et cetera, et cetera? And I remember remarking, not really. I mean, we don't have any comments this session. We have an occasional set of comments, but we really don't have a groundswell of public input. So I get the sense, and I'll look again to other commissioners that interact with these people more than I do. It seems like having it prior 9 to 5-ish, I'll call it, would not disrupt anything and would be much more amenable to getting work done and having the appropriate level of detail, which we can't have today.
May I interject? The actual reason was because they wanted to get more people on the commissions that weren't just retired or were not working during the day. They wanted to attract people that do have 9 to 5 jobs, often younger people than retired age, to be on the commissions. And the way to get that was to have the meetings after work hours. That was
also, we specifically went to the council for an exemption.
Yes.
We were turned down, and I actually was very passionate about trying to keep it at 8 or 8:30 in the morning because I'm personally not a night person, but I think this case, the ship has sailed, and I don't think the council is going to take it up again on behalf of our commission. I think it's like done.
Yeah, and to share with you, this does not only apply to the airport commission. They made it standard for all commissions.
But we asked for an exemption and they said no.
Absolutely.
Well, then we have to, okay, then what I'm hearing is there isn't enough interest in changing the meeting time. Then the meeting starts at 5:30 and goes until it's done.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing it. We've never ever shortcut or said that we are going to cut down this meeting. It's never happened.
Until today.
Until today, even I said, let's try. I never said we are going to.
And it's 6:28.
Exactly.
I think that we have to step back and watch what's going on here. I mean, within 4 months, we could have 4 new city council people and if we're lucky, a new city manager. So I think that a lot of these things that came out with the existing council, primarily in response of COVID and for the other reasons that were mentioned, may be all up for grabs. And keep in mind that part of what Justin was trying to accomplish was to bring some sort of consistent process to how commissions work with city council and how they work with city staff. What happens to that work that was way down the road, the 10 points that they've been working on for months and months and months? who knows what happens to that now? And when you add 4 out of 5 new council people potentially, all of this could go sideways in different ways and different priorities. So again, similar to waiting till Monday, do we find out what the white smoke looks like coming out of the city council meeting, their private meeting on the city manager situation? I suspect that we may be able to influence some of this moving forward, if only because there's going to be lots of new people and a whole new city manager. So I think we should pick our battles carefully and just know that it's going to be a little kludgy for a while until some of these things are sorted out and the election takes place. Just one person's opinion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate that. And all of you have already heard or notified that everyone's term has been extended till the foreseeable future, knowing that our city manager is now leaving, who wanted to shrink this commission to a very small level. I think that shadow has been removed for the time being. So let's hope sometimes early part of next year, when we have new council, when we have new city manager, we will take the next step. Any other comments, questions before I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting? Our next meeting is scheduled September 21st, 2022. For the time being, it will be 5:30 and it will be via Zoom.
So moved.
Well, one question. Since we're not meeting until September, just before the offsite, if we do the offsite, which we'll find out about electronically on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday next week, how do we get consensus on the agenda for the offsite?
Kevin, Vice Chair,
it's something that I said I would take on and organize. So what I think we'll do, John and Scott and others, is that we'll gather the topics that you've proposed, and then we'll work with staff to come up with an overall agenda. I mean, there could be 1,000 topics and we don't have time to learn about all of those, but we're going to try to organize this agenda in such a way so we can get the important information with the time that we have. And what I'll commit to is that we'll socialize this agenda with the commission to make sure that everybody agrees in the direction we're going and also how we're going to facilitate this. So to Christina's point, send your ideas along. I think that we've asked the staff to prioritize what they think are the most important topics that we need to get smart about. And we'll incorporate all of that into a draft and circulate it with enough time for people to have input and to make sure we're comfortable with how we're doing this.
Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I think we already have a first, so I'll second.
Terrific, Ken, appreciate that. Everyone enjoy your time off for August, and we will be back in 60 days.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
You.
Have a
Take
good
care.
day.
Yes. Take care now.
Bye-bye.